Hey guys, I want to bring to light what I think and probably most people believe to have been the first badass intake carburetor combination available to the aftermarket performance hot rodding world in the day. What I'm referring to here is the Man-A-Fre intake setup by Robert Patrick in the late 50s and later to be joined by Harold Graves by the early 60s. These are just cool, innovative induction systems that would have blown every gearhead's mind back in the day. Originally come up with and developed by Robert Patrick in the late 50s, and theory has it that Man-A-Fre is a system not so much using, actually eliminating the manifold plenum and any passages, so to speak, and even most of the intake runners that would have been. Theory to this back in the day is that conventional style manifolds back then just didn't distribute the fuel and air equally to all cylinders, whereas the Man-A-Fre intake consists of a lower intake and mounted carb plates that houses 4 carbs directly over the short and direct intake ports, set to achieve the best fuel and air distribution for max horsepower and performance. Basically a barrel venturi for each cylinder. So you guys are probably thinking, big deal. There was multi-carb, Weber and Indy style intake setups also in the day. But wait up, Man-A-Fre didn't just stop at that. What they're known about and so cool, desirable and collectible about is that they also had an optional afterburner, built-in injectors tapped into the carb base plate, just like an early style drag car injector manifold that would have been. But all being proportionally delivered by a solenoid-controlled distribution fuel lock, supplying all carbs with an extra dose of fuel from 4,000 RPMs onwards when it was needed. This right here, guys, was the precursor pretty much to what would have been the modern day EFI and even the later thought of nitrous oxide systems. Man-A-Fre, definitely an early take on direct port fuel injection, but all carbureted fed with a push of a button for that, extra dose of fuel for them serious racers. As mentioned earlier, by the early 60s, Harold Graves, who was a carb guru, especially with Rochesters, had stepped into the picture and helped refine the Man-A-Fre intake system further, with more refined castings, well-prepped carbs, both for street hot rodding and all-out race versions. For the serious setups, Graves would preferably use the larger 3-inch diameter Rochesters that had the 1-inch and 3/4 bore, typically found on the 57 Pontiacs, and modify them to accept built-in spray injectors, balance tubes cast into the carb plates to evenly supply the port with the same amounts of fuel and air. Chevy truck carbs were also used and modified, as well as the smaller Rochesters with the 1 and 1/4 bores. Like a lot of things new and innovative, Man-A-Fre injector carburation systems were advertised well, showed up in various hot rodding magazines, articles, features, etc. And not forgetting, famously used on that yellow juice coupe in the movie American Graffiti. Now that's cool and badass. These systems were first and originally designed and used on the Chevy small blocks, of the time, the 265 to 283 cubic inch small blocks, more so for the Corvettes and for it all to fit, under bonnet. And then throughout the 60s, eventually spread out to suit a number of makes, whether it be, big blocks or small block Fords, etc. So there you go, guys. Another old school is cool piece of performance history right there. Man-A-Fre intake systems free from manifold passages. Now very rare, costly, desirable and collectible by many. Wouldn't you want a Man-A-Fre topped setup on that period correct hot rod build? I know I would. Thanks, guys.